We begin not with a house, but with a myth. It's a brief, almost dreamlike prologue that sets the tone for everything that follows in this volume of Poe's work. Imagine a kingdom that was once radiant, a place of pure light and divine grace. In this heavenly valley, a powerful monarch ruled from a palace made of gold and precious gems. This wasn't just a place of wealth, but a place of perfect order and celestial harmony. The king was surrounded by spirits known as echoes, ethereal beings who sang his wisdom through beautiful, melodic songs. It was a time of absolute grace where music represented the very structure of existence. But that splendor was shattered. The text describes evil things dressed in sorrow that attacked this high estate. The light was extinguished, the music stopped, and the once gilded kingdom was transformed into a desolate, dim-remembered memory entombed in the past. It's a heavy, haunting image, and it serves as a thematic map for the stories that follow. It tells us that beauty is fragile, that order is temporary, and that everything, no matter how bright or divine, is subject to an inevitable descent into decay and darkness. This transition from a sweet day of perfection to a ruined memory establishes the core tragedy of the collection, the inevitability of ruin. This descent from glory into ruin is perfectly captured in one of Poe's most famous works, The Fall of the House of Usher. We move from the mythic, golden palace of the prologue into a much more claustrophobic and oppressive reality. The story is told by an unnamed narrator who arrives at a remote, gloom-ridden estate to visit his childhood friend, Roderick Usher. As the narrator approaches the house, he feels an immediate physical sense of dread. The house isn't just old, it feels predatory. The atmosphere is thick with a sense of decay, and the very air feels heavy and stagnant. There is an oppressive aura to the place that seems to seep into the narrator's own mind, transforming his initial skepticism into a mounting, irrational fear. Roderick Usher is a man who has been fundamentally changed by this environment. He is suffering from what he calls a disordered fancy, a profound mental instability that has left him hypersensitive to almost every sensory input. He can only tolerate certain sounds, he has a heightened sense of smell, and he is plagued by a strange, terrifying belief. Roderick believes that the house itself is sentient. He contends that the very stones, the fungi growing on the walls, and the atmosphere of the Usher estate possess a conscious, oppressive power. In Roderick's mind, the house is not just a building, but a living entity that has shaped his family's destiny and is now actively working to claim him. The narrator tries to remain a rational observer. He wants to believe Roderick is simply suffering from a nervous breakdown, a product of his isolated life and fragile health. But as they spend time together, the line between rational thought and irrational dread begins to blur. They spend their days immersed in esoteric and occult literature, attempting to find meaning in the house's oppressive aura. However, the more they study these dark texts, the more the house seems to press in on them, as if the intellectual pursuit of the occult is only opening the door further to the house's influence. The tension reaches a breaking point when Lady Madeline, Roderick's twin sister, falls ill. Her illness is mysterious and silent, and she seems to be fading away even as she remains physically present. Eventually, she dies. To avoid any medical inquiries and to protect her body from the local burial grounds, Roderick decides to entomb her in a copper-lined vault deep within the foundations of the house. The narrator assists in this interment, and it is during this process that the supernatural elements of the story become more pronounced. He remembers the striking, almost supernatural physical resemblance between the twins, suggesting a bond that transcends simple siblinghood. He also notes a lingering, unnatural smile on Madeline's face as she is laid to rest, a detail that adds a layer of macabre uncertainty to her passing. This burial is more than just a funeral. It serves as a literal and metaphorical entombment of the family's secrets and their remaining sanity. After the burial, the atmosphere of the house shifts from oppressive to predatory. A violent storm begins to brew outside, mirroring the chaos and agitation within the walls. Roderick descends into a state of extreme, trembling terror, a state of visible madness that he cannot explain. The narrator, too, finds himself feeling a mounting, irrational dread, realizing that he is no longer an objective observer, but an unwilling participant in the house's gloom. As the storm intensifies, the boundary between the physical environment and the character's mental states begins to dissolve completely. The story leaves us in this state of peak tension, leaving the ultimate fate of the Usher line hanging in a state of terrifying uncertainty. When we step back from the terror of the Usher estate, we can see how Poe uses this story to explore much larger ideas. One of the most striking elements is the concept of the transience of glory. That opening myth about the Golden Kingdom is crucial because it establishes a world where perfection exists but is inherently temporary. The movement from a sweet day of perfection to a dim-remembered story is the arc of the Usher family. They were once a powerful, perhaps even noble line, but they have fallen into a state of irreversible decay. The Golden Palace and the House of Usher are two sides of the same coin. One is the memory of what was, and the other is the reality of the fall. This leads us to the idea of the sentience of the inanimate. Poe plays with the fear that our environment isn't just a backdrop for our lives, but an active participant in our psychological state. Roderick believes the house is watching him, and as the story progresses, the house seems to act as a physical manifestation of his own crumbling mind. The stones and the fungi aren't just decaying, they are presented as part of a conscious, oppressive force that binds the fate of the people to the fate of the building. It suggests a terrifying possibility that we are not the masters of our surroundings, but are instead shaped and perhaps destroyed by the spaces we inhabit. We also see a profound exploration of the double or twinship. Roderick and Madeline are more than just siblings, they are two halves of a single fractured whole. Their physical and spiritual connection is so intense that their fates are inextricably linked. This twinship suggests that the characters are extensions of the house itself. Just as the house is a singular, decaying entity, Roderick and Madeline are bound together in a cycle of mutual destruction. When one falls, the other is pulled down with them, as they are both tethered to the same ancestral rot. There is also a constant, structural movement between light and darkness. The volume begins with the memory of a radiant, luminous palace and moves toward the dark, claustrophobic vaults of the Usher estate. This isn't just a change in setting, it's a movement from order to chaos, from the light of reason to the darkness of madness. The progression is designed to make the listener feel the walls closing in, moving from the open air of a heavenly valley to the suffocating depths of a copper-lined vault. We can also look at the role of music and sound as a representation of order. In the beginning, the echoes sang in harmony, representing a structured musical existence. Music here is a symbol of divine grace and stability. By the end, that harmony has been replaced by the chaotic, terrifying noise of a storm. The transition from the melodic songs of the prologue to the oppressive silence and eventual noise of the Usher estate mirrors the collapse of the mind. Music, which once represented the height of order, is gone, replaced by the sounds of a world falling apart. The narrator is a fascinating figure in this process. He starts as a skeptical, rational observer, attempting to ground the situation in logic and psychological explanation. But Poe shows us how difficult it is to remain rational when the environment itself seems to be attacking your sanity. The narrator's reliability becomes questionable as he succumbs to the same irrational dread as Roderick. He proves that no amount of skepticism can protect a person when the boundary between the mind and the external world dissolves. Ultimately, the works in this volume suggest a terrifying realization. The environment and the human mind are not separate entities. They are inextricably linked. The decay of the world around us can mirror the decay within us, and when the structure of our reality finally breaks, there is nothing left to hold us together. The House of Usher is not just a setting for a story of madness, it is the madness itself, made of stone and fungi. The tragedy is not just that the house falls, but that the minds within it have already crumbled long before the first storm ever hit.